Hello, this is my term project for 15112 at Carnegie Mellon, and for my project, I have created a simulator for the classic board game Risk. So as you can see, we're in the main page, and we have some nice Monty Python riding music going on. I feel that's the most. If Risk were to have a soundtrack, it would be this music. Um, but we're gonna shut that off for now. Um, so the game of Risk is, going around capturing territories, using your armies, getting new armies, attacking and fortifying, deploying, all that good stuff. So we have all of that functionality in the game, as well as a map editor, which allows the user to create their own maps. If they got tired of the standard map, which a lot of people do because it can't change because it's a board game. Um, we also have settings that the user can change how the game is set up, and we have help, which just gives a little bit of help on how to use various functions and buttons in the game. So let's start off with the map editor. So as you can see, we have this blank canvas that we're going to create our map on. We're going to import a background image to trace along. Now this image is not associated with the map. It's very temporary. It's only going to appear right here during this map editing session. So now we're going to go and add points at various spots to create art to divide up the United States into our territories. And we got some points here. Let's say oops, I kind of put a point too close there. I can move these around to change it up a little bit if I felt like I made a mistake. I can draw in borders. The borders are solely for the purpose of helping the user see how their map is going to be divided up. They do not persist in the save of the map. They are just there to help get a sense of what the space is going to feel like. So these territories will be shaded in the game though, so you don't have to worry about that. And there will be borders, but it's yeah. Next, we want to, let's say, we're not quite done with this, but, we're pretty sure that we want these to be our territories. So we're going to select and we're going to right click on the points that make up a territory in the order of the borders. So you trace along. And we're going to hit the territory button and we're going to name this Wash for Washington. And we're going to do the same thing for this kind of Montana area. So we're going to call this Montana. So it places it in there. Note that it's created these as territories. You can't really tell. That's not very apparent. It kind of puts them at a fake midpoint, which is just kind of like an average of the max and the minimum y and x values. Note that the game and the map editor does support polygonal territories. So you could have a 6-7 sided convex, concave, whatever you want. It's all good. And so we've created our two of our territories. We're pretty sure that this is the way they're going to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect them. So we're going to make them neighbors and buddies. So we click in Washington and we drag to Montana, and so now they're buddies. In fact, these two territories are going to be in the same continent. And a continent refers to a collection of territories. In the standard map, they're usually territories that are, like all of the South American territories, or North America, or Asia, or Europe. So what we're going to do is we're going to, for this, we're going to just create a small continent out of Washington and Montana. So we're going to right-click on Washington and Montana, And so we want these two to be in our continent, so we're going to click the continent button, and we're going to name this continent the Northwest. And let's say it's only worth 2 bonus troops, when you get your troops, but we'll talk about that. It randomly assigns it a color. This is going to be the color of that continent in the game, but the territories themselves are not going to be colored this way. The borders are going to be colored this way to indicate that they're part of the same continent. But the territories themselves are colored according to the player. So now we're going to save. Let's say we're not quite done with this, but it's looking pretty good. We want to keep this one, so we're going to save it as I'm going to call this the United States. And so we've saved it. So we could return to the menu and then come back, whenever. It saves it in a .txt file, so you could exit the game and then come back and then reload it. Did I call this? Yeah. So observe that the it didn't save the borders, but we were expecting that because that's not something that persists. We could redraw them in. It doesn't really matter in the map editor. They're just there to help get a sense of what the areas are going to be. And we could just keep working from here. So now we've seen the map editor. What we're going to do is we're going to set up our game. So we're going to go into settings. Notice that these 2 players are highlighted. That means that they're going to be active during the game, all human players. So we just click and it highlights it, and that means they're active. We can have up to 4. The color of the button is going to be the color of the territories occupied by that player, and we'll see that in just a bit. So we're going to have 2 players. Starting troops is the initial deployment of troops per each player. So they get 1 troop, 1 army person per territory, and then there's a way that the rest get divided up. And then we can choose our map. I have a standard US map that I've already created, loaded, but we could use the United States map that we just created. But we're gonna stick with the US map that I had done already because it's complete. So now we're gonna play the game. And as you can see right away, it's loaded up the game. Lots of colorful things, very stimulating. We have, just as I said, the borders represent the color of the continent that that territory is associated with. So as we can see, the player 1, which is red, has these 3, and they're part of the same continent. This blue continent, and player 2 has this one in the this continent as well, and this is another continent, the purple, and this is another continent, the green. So now we're being prompted to deploy 1 initial troop. So we're going to click inside of our territory, and as you can see, the number of troops increased. So we're going to do the same. I'm just going to go with just deploying these 2. We could, of course, put in. It's players 2 turn. We could, of course, put in more, into different ones. I'm just demonstrating. And so we're going to be prompted to keep doing this until we get to this. So this is the stage deployment. So now all the kind of extra troops that we had left over from distributing 1 to each territory per player has been done, and we've distributed all the leftovers, and now we're into the main deployment, which is determined. The number of troops you get for this is determined by the amount of territories you have, so that divided by 3 as an integer rounded down with a minimum of 3. So you're always going to get at least 3 per turn. And you also get troops depending on the bonuses that you have. So if I were to capture just capture California as player 1, I would have this continent bonus. So let's try to do that. So I'm gonna set these up, deploy these here, and so all of the staging is done through the next stage button. So these just kind of the game is set up to help new users a lot, because in the game, the user is new players to the game are usually very confused about how, when can I do this and when can I do that. It's laid out very clearly, and you can't advance beyond a certain stage, and you can't go back. So we finished deploying. So if we had extra troops left over, and we didn't deploy them, we'd lose them if we went to the next stage. So now we're going to attack. So what we're going to do is we're going to select one of our territories, and then an enemy territory. So we want California. Now notice that we have these dice down here. That's what these are, and all of them are light gray except for this one. The left 3 are the attacker die, and the right 2 are the defender die. The light gray means that the user, the attacker, or defender, may use that die in this move, but the dark gray means that they can't. So even though I'm clicking and you can't, it's not going to activate it. So it's gonna when we click roll, we're gonna simulate this attack and defense, and we're gonna see what happened. So the attacker got a 3, a 4, a 6, a 3, and a 1, and the defender got a 5, and it pairs them up according to highest, second highest, and then so the attacker won, and so he gets to move his troops in there into the defender's territory. He moves in all the number of troops that he used die for. So since he used 3 die, he has to move in 3 troops. Next, we're gonna, let's say that we're. Sorry about that. There was a little bug, but we're gonna get right back into it. So we're gonna deploy the troops, the initial deployment, deploy the extra that we get per turn. We're gonna attack from here to California. Use all of our die. Roll. We dominate. So we move into the next stage. The next stage is fortification. So what this is moving troops that from the back to the front of the line. So let's we've got 3 troops in California. California is not going to be attacked for a while. They have to get through the desert, which is New Mexico and Arizona. We've selected California. We're going to move into the desert. 2 of our troops. So that's a move. And then if we click the next stage button, it's going to be players 2 turn, and then it's their turn to deploy, troops. So this is the game of Risk. And I hope you enjoyed it.